Hey guys, it's Alex. Today I wanted to talk about why men hold vehicles in high regard when it comes to, in terms of importance in their life. A lot of women specifically don't get this. A lot of women don't understand why men remember a car and brings back great memories. And it's really simple. It's a time capsule. Whether it be a car that symbolized a time in your life or a certain model of car or brand that brought back good memories of that time in your life. Well, I have such a vehicle myself. I used to have a 1986 Fox Body Mustang 4i. Now, for those of you that don't know much about Mustangs and Fox bodies in general, from 79 to 86, the headlights were 4i, meaning you had four headlights on the car. You had just the low beam and the high beam, not like in 87 to 93 where everything was integrated in one lens. For whatever reason, that particular light or style really attracted me, specifically 85 to 86. 84 had like a honeycomb grill I didn't like. 82 GTs looked really good, but for whatever reason, 85 to 86 to me, to Alex, just looked perfect. And it was a vehicle that I always wanted. And my first vehicle was an 86 Mustang GT. But as I became more knowledgeable in the racing scene, I knew that I had to get into a notchback, aka a LX trunk model, because they were the lightest ones. And if I could find one that had crank windows, no AC option, I knew I'd have the best shot of having a quick running vehicle with minimal mods. And I came across this gray 1986 notchback when I used to own my 87 Red GT. Now, the 87 Red GT had trick flow heads, had a E-cam, it had a Cobra upper and lower, 90 millimeter mass air, 65 millimeter, the whole typical period corrects of Ford Racing shorties, Tremec 3550, everything. And that car was, let's say, a 1260 car, 1250 car, as it's sat, no gutting it. So one time I was out and about racing and a buddy of mine had a notchback and he just beat the ever-living snots out of me. And I went, wait a minute, how is that car quicker than mine? And it had stock cylinder heads, stock rockers, basically a bunch of stock stuff. Well, that's when I started learning that weight is a bigger determining factor, usually, than horsepower. And back then, you really weren't making a lot of horsepower. Fox bodies in the 80s, if you were running 11s, you were fast. If you were running 10s, you were supercharged. If you were running 9s, you probably had a big block with nitrous in it. That's typically how it went back in, let's say, the 90s. Now, the really, really fast guys, they had super built motors, big time, boost, but broke guys like me were stuck in the 11 and 12 second range. So this vehicle was something I basically sold my Red GT for, and I picked it up. And the next couple of years, I learned a lot with it. Okay, I went from fuel injection to carburetor. It had an Edelbrock Performer RPM upper and lower, and I ended up installing an Edelbrock air gap carbureted intake, an MSD 6AL ignition, MSD distributor, and a Holley 650 double pumper on it, and it went from being a 1280, 1270 car to being a 1230, 1220 car. But besides that car represented a big learning curve in my racing hobby. So unfortunately, due to, I'll give you guys advice, don't ever mix family with money. Due to family circumstances and me having to buy a house, I had to sell it for like $3,200. Now, I have put up a couple of posts on my community tab on YouTube with the VIN number of the vehicle, hoping that someone can at least give me a clue as to its whereabouts. Now, my fear is that it was gutted, made into a shell, and then crushed because it's a Northeast car. But at the time, I sold it being a 1220, 1230 car very consistently, and it probably would have run a high 11 on a cold day. So what I'm looking to do with this video is reach out to the general public out there and see if we can find this car, see if we can locate it, its whereabouts, and see if we can make something of it and maybe buy it back. Well, my hope is this. My hope is that it's either a rolling chassis somewhere and it's able to be salvaged, because the last time I heard anything about this car was 2005 in Massachusetts. I sold it to a guy in New Hampshire who I think painted it like salmon color, like pink basically. And I think he flipped it or sold it, or someone made it into a race car. Who knows? But I'm hoping that someone out there can look at the photos that I put up about on the car, the VIN number, and the last thing I already did a Carfax on it. The last time it was registered was under my name. So either someone converted it to a race car, or someone took the Tremec rear end and motor out of it and then just dumped the shell off somewhere. And if the shell is still available, I don't mind buying a shell. I'll put it in storage and, do something with it eventually. But it is a time capsule, because it is the car that actually got me very knowledgeable. I became super knowledgeable in fuel injection versus carburetor. I learned carburetors with it. I went through many carburetors with it. I did a bunch of racing with it. I blew up like 5 transmissions until I got a Tremec 3550. I went through 3 or 4 clutches. I went from a King Cobra to a Zoom, the worst mistake I've ever done, and then to a center force clutch in it, and that's where it stood. And I had 430s in the diff with a spool, C-clip eliminators, and 33 spline axles. That car was an evil little car for what it was. Now, I am not expecting this car to be in one piece in terms of driving, but I would hope that at least the shell is still something that can be salvaged. And I'm hoping to potentially bring the Fairmont stuff over to it, because the Fairmont is slated to be something serious down the road. I have totally different plans for the Fairmont when it's all said and done. So this video is to reach out to the general public, especially in the Northeast. I'll give you a little finder's fee if you can find it, but the VIN number is below or in the comments section or in the description. And the last time it was registered was around 2005 in Massachusetts. Again, it is a time capsule. So if people don't understand why men really highly desire certain vehicles that remind them of their past, is because of that. It reminds them of the emotion, what they learned, and what they went through with that vehicle at that time. So if anyone has information on this 1986 Mustang notchback sold to a guy in New Hampshire back in 2005 or so, please email me or hit me up on the channel. My email is ydbt4life@gmail.com. I'm looking to buy it back, even if it's a shell or a roller, because I'd like to basically get it fixed up and have it remind me of a time in my life where I had to get rid of it because of some circumstances to buy a house to get out of a bad situation. But now that I'm in a better situation, I'd love to have it back. All right, guys, hopefully you guys can help me out finding this vehicle, and I'll give you a little finder's fee if you can find it. Thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you later.